overwhelmed and stressed? Do you believe that stress is just, well, it's inevitable? And especially being a business owner, it's just one of the perks of it, isn't it? Yeah, no. Uh, Today on Make It Click, I have with me Dr. Orman. Dr. Orman is an internal medicine physician and America's leading stress elimination expert. Yes, you heard me right. Elimination. Okay. No management here. Dr. Orman, can we first start with explaining stress versus anxiety? Some people say, "Oh, I'm so anxious," or so. How do you know which one you have, or maybe they're interchangeable? I don't know.
Well, it's easy, Christine. One is just a word, and the other is a real thing. So anxiety is real. Stress is not. Stress is just a word. It's like a big umbrella word. It's a broad concept, and under that umbrella, you can take any problem that human beings experience, whether it's anxiety or anger or fear of public speaking or financial issues or business issues or self doubt or trouble with your kids or trouble with your marriage. You can put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different problems under this umbrella called stress. And when you and I say we're stressed, we're not really suffering from stress. We're suffering from problems in our lives that are bothering us we'd rather not have. So stress is just this umbrella term that people have turned into a thing, even though it's not. And sometimes we make the mistake of thinking our problem is stress and then asking, well, how can I deal with my stress? And that takes you down a very bad path in terms of being able to resolve those problems. What you want to do is get rid of the word stress if you can, or don't let yourself use it and just switch it to problems and then ask yourself, what are the specific problems I'm having, and delineate them. Say, I'm having this problem and this problem and this, or maybe it's just one big problem,
Mhm.
of something horrible happened, or, recently or something like that, or you lost your job or something, so it could be a big problem or it could be 20 little problems, ganging up on you all at once, which is common also.
Mhm.
So anxiety is just one of the things under the tent or the umbrella that we use this word stress for. And it's a real thing and you can deal with anxiety. You can't deal with stress.
Mhm.
Now, I know that some people would think, well, what about all the scientific studies, with all the physiology and the hormones, and yeah, all that stuff's real. Our bodies get stirred up unnaturally. But what's stirring them up are the problems that we're having. So you can't forget about the problems that are the driving force and just say, well, stress is just this physical reaction in the body. It's that physical reaction in the body is coming from something. It doesn't just happen on its own. And it's coming from all these unresolved problems that we have that we're struggling with.
Now you said that the physical reactions in your body. Now some people know they are stressed out.
Mhm.
What about people that you might even see people that, "Oh boy, they're really stressed," but they don't identify that way. What are some of the clues that somebody truly is stressed and that it needs to be taken care of?
Yeah, well, there's some classic symptoms of our bodies hyperreacting. So you get tight muscles, you can get indigestion, you can get headaches, you can get heartburn, you can get all kinds of physical. You get high blood pressure, you can get all kinds of stuff. But sometimes you can have a problem in life, a big problem, and not have that physiology stir up. Let's say all your relationships dissolve, or disintegrate,
Mhm.
after a short period of time. You may not be feeling, you're probably feeling a little discouragement about that and disappointment about that, but you might not be feeling the classic stress symptoms, but that's a problem in your life that's probably uh, something you'd rather not have, which is how I define stress. And so it doesn't always have to be associated with the physical symptoms. But a lot of people are pretty aware today of the classic, physical symptoms of stress. And I used to have lots of people come into my office as a practicing internist, and they would tell me their symptoms. And it was very clear, right, very early on in their visit, that they were under a lot of stress or having a lot of problems in their life, and that was causing their symptomatology. Of course, you always have to make sure it's not some other thing like a disease or a physical condition that's masquerading as a psychophysiologic type thing. But you always have to check out those other things. But a lot of times when you would do that, they would check out okay, and it would turn out there's a lot of stuff going on in people's
Mhm.
lives.
Yeah. So it's something is happening with somebody's body that they're like, "Oh, I have to go to the doctor, I have constant headaches." It's like and then the doctor might identify, through evaluation that, "Oh, this is being caused by stress," and
Yes,
how you help people is say, "Wait, okay, let's go one step further.
that's right.
What is that
Yeah,
underlying?"
and when I was practicing medicine early in my career, that's all I knew how to do. I could diagnose that the problem was. I could rule out some of the other physical causes, and I
Mhm.
could be led to the conclusion that well, it's probably stress. But then I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the skill that I have now, where I could say, well, let me help you with that stress. All I could do is advise them to manage their stress, which is what I've been taught to do and I've been taught to tell people to do. And it didn't work for me, and it usually didn't work for my patients. I didn't know what I know now, where I could take people aside and I could say, look, let's set up a time when we work together. I can help you get rid of your stress, and it might relieve a lot of these things that you're feeling, or it might keep you from getting a worse physical problem down the road, where you could get a heart attack or a stroke or cancer or some horrible autoimmune disease, something else. I would have loved to have been able to prevent those things as a practicing physician, but I didn't have the know-how until I developed later. And now that I'm retired, I have the ability to do that for people. So I almost feel like I'm being a better physician now that I'm retired, and I can go into these kind of issues with people and help prevent them from getting sick than when I was practicing medicine, which all I was doing was just processing people quickly and patching them up and treating their blood pressure and their cholesterol and all that other stuff and trying to keep them from having complications that way. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a better doctor now. I can do more that most other doctors can't do, or don't have the time to do, or can't even think about doing. They're so busy. They can't even think about learning a skill like that, much less taking the time to practice it, in their practices because they're just swamped with patients.
Yeah. Yeah, you had mentioned about learning, go manage the stress. So
Yeah,
manage stress is a big term. Coping, you just have to cope with it.
yeah.
Why doesn't managing it why isn't that good enough? I'm managing it. I'm okay. I mean,
Well, it's funny. We, we we have been so brainwashed as a society. It's not just you look in the political arena, you see it happening every day. People trying to brainwash you, but it happens in many other areas of life. So the stress management people, in their desire to help folks not get sick from stress, have promoted all these myths about stress management that people have just latched onto and they believe are true. And one of the biggest myths is that managing stress is the ultimate way you can deal with it. And that's everybody knows that's not true. Everybody knows just treating the symptoms of a problem in life is not the best way to go.
mhm,
You want to try and get at the causes if you can. So intuitively, we know stress management is not a great solution, but that's all we're being pitched. That's all that's being recommended. And the stress management message is so strong that people have just incorporated it, like they incorporate other kinds of propaganda that get them to believe something that their eyes can tell them is not really true, but they're just so enamored with the what do you call it, with the conversation or with the idea, that it just blocks their rational mind from saying,
mm,
wait a second, this is like the emperor has no clothes 2022 version. What I uh, if you ask people, would you rather deal with the symptoms of your problems or would you rather deal with the causes of them? They'll always say causes. But then the next thing they'll do is they'll say, well, but I can't do anything about the causes of my stress because it's my boss, it's my spouse, it's my kids, it's my job, it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans, it's COVID, it's whatever,
yeah,
So that's another big myth, that the causes of our stress are outside of us and we can't do much about a lot of those, when that's only half the story.
mm,
There's a whole bunch of causes inside of us, ways we think, ways we perceive, ways we automatically behave, ways we've been programmed to view life and to deal with life, that are very much causing a lot of our stress and problems and suffering in life. But we're not paying attention to them. They're hidden from our view. It was like they're like missing puzzle pieces. You're trying to put together, 1,000-piece puzzle, and somebody removed half of the puzzle pieces, and you don't know it, and the puzzle isn't working out,
Yeah.
and you're scratching your head like, "Why isn't this puzzle? Why isn't this picture getting clear?" And well, you're
Yeah.
missing half the puzzle pieces, and those are the ones inside us that mostly we're not taught how to identify. I went through all my education. I went through college. I went through 4 years of medical school, 3 years of medical residency. Nobody taught me how to identify those internal causes of anger and anxiety and relationship failures and all the stuff I was dealing with. Nobody taught me how to do that. They didn't
Yeah.
even they didn't even suggest that I look inside.
Mm.
Everything was focused on the outside world, and that's what the media does. They just focus on the outside sources. They rarely talk about what's going on inside human beings,
Yeah.
and they don't.
Now, when we're talking about small business owners,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, here we're all trying to build a business and everything. What can happen to your business if you're not eliminating the stress?
There are a ton of adverse effects of stress, and again, we don't want to think about them. We really want to push them out of our awareness. So we get in a state of denial. And the problem with stress is the damage that I mean, you might feel it every day, a couple times a day or many times a day, but the damage it's doing, it's slowly, little by little, over days, over months, over years. I know when I when I was in practice, I had a front row seat to what stress can do to human beings because I saw people for over 23 years, and they would tell me about their not only their symptoms, but they tell me about their problems they were having in life that were bothering them. I couldn't do anything about them, but they told me about them, and you could see what happens to people over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and you just watch them develop illnesses. You're trying to prevent it, but you just watch them. The stress breaks through and causes them to have something horrible happen, or they get divorced, or their business partnership falls apart, or they get addicted to something. You just see that you have a front row seat. You see this every day. You see 20 patients, and 18 of them are having major stress issues in their life. And you see them over time. Those issues don't go away because they never get at the source of them. And then it just ends up wearing them down, causing them to look more aged, and eventually ending their lives down the road, or
Mm.
causing them to get something bad. So I had that perspective, and that was one of the things that kept driving me because I saw the bus coming. Like when you go to your office or your workplace as an entrepreneur, you'll see that. Yeah, you may feel a little tense, may feel irritable, and then you brush it off, and I got to push through that. But you don't see what it's doing to your internal organs, and you don't see the little tiny infinitesimal changes that are building up over time that are going to come back and bite you. So there's that aspect of it. It's our health. But I tell you what it also does. It can cause us to have problems in our relationships with the people we're working with or our clients. We can get short with them, we get angry with them, we can do things that damage the relationship or make it so they don't want to be around us, they don't want to work with us. But the other thing people don't realize is when you're stressed and you're in business, there are a lot of opportunities that are coming your way that you pass on because
Mm.
you go, oh, my plate's too full. I mean, I can't move on this opportunity. That would just stress me out even more, and I'm barely able to do what I'm doing with the level of stress that I have now. So we don't realize how many great opportunities we pass on that could be big, money makers, or could be big efficiency improvements in how we run our business, and we can't grab them as they come floating by. We can't grab onto them because we know that's going to increase our stress levels if the current way we're thinking about things and doing things. Now, it doesn't have to. And I know when I figured out how to get rid of my stress over 40 years ago, I was able to take on lots and lots of opportunities that I wouldn't have taken on before because I knew how to not be stressed by them. So I
Mm.
could just have the door wide open. And if I saw something that I thought would help me or I wanted to get involved in, I could just do it. And so that's a big cost of stress that we discount, but
Yeah.
it's there and it's real.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact, you go home, you don't sleep well, your mind's racing, you're worried about what's going on, you're worried about finances, you're worried about where the clients are going to come from, How are you going to recover from COVID? Whatever it is, it
Mhm.
just wears you down, saps your energy. You're just not. You may be running at 75%, and you may be able to do a lot of stuff at 75%. But just imagine if you were 95%, and
Mm,
you had dropped a lot of this weight that you're carrying around like an anchor.
yeah.
It really make a difference. And then the last thing is sometimes again we get brainwashed into thinking that we need to have stress, that we wouldn't be productive if we
Oh,
weren't being
good point.
if we
Yeah.
weren't being
Yeah.
driven by it. And that again, that's a complete myth. It's the
Yeah.
fact that you set your life up that way, that the only thing that motivates you to do stuff is to get anxious or to get tense or to have a deadline approach that you had been ignoring for 3 weeks and now it's 2 days and oh, I gotta get it together and do something. The fact that you organize your life that way and it looks like the stress is making you or the problems are making you successful, they're not. They're just
Mm,
causing you more angst. And you could have started working on that problem 2 weeks earlier if you disciplined yourself and if you had a system for following through on things, efficiently. And
yeah.
you could actually be more successful if you got rid of your stress. So it's almost backward. We have it backwards. We think the stress is making us productive. It's actually making us less productive. And if you learn how to get rid of stress, like I've learned how to do and taught other people to do, it's amazing how much more successful people become when they're freed up.
Yeah. Well, now, what about the time factor? Now, all too often, people are looking for the quick fix. Now,
Yep.
is to say, "Oh, I'll help you manage your stress," is that the quick fix, and that's why people might
It's
gravitate? Versus, "Let's work a little longer, and you will eliminate it." What's the
Yeah, it's
time
one of
difference?
many quick fixes. Every time I've done hundreds of radio shows over the years, and every single radio host invariably says, "Can you give us a great tip for our audience?" And my main tip is if you think tips are going to help you change your whole relationship to stress, there's something wrong here. That's a bad philosophy. That's the wrong question. People need to change the entire way they've been taught to think about stress. And that's not a quick fix. I don't fix people in one session. I can fix people over a couple months, of working, with me, but I have to go in and I have to change a bunch of beliefs they have about stress and show them why they're not true, and then show them, well, that's not true, but here's what is true. Here's what does work, and then they have to get themselves to practice with that new way of thinking and maybe some new strategies and they get to see, hey, wow, I didn't see that before, but that really works. I wish I'd
Mm,
have known that before, and that doesn't happen, you know, like that, but that's what people want. And again, we got our ideas backwards. If you're looking for that quick thing, then you don't understand that the problem requires not just a little fix, it requires a major overhaul in your whole understanding of stress. And by the way, underneath that is a lot of myths we have about what it means to be human. That has to get fixed. And then a whole bunch of beliefs, mistaken ideas about what's causing our stress. That has to be fixed. So
mhm,
there's a lot of layers to this, and but it's really useful stuff. I mean, it's stuff I wish I'd have been taught when I was in high school. Can you
mm.
imagine if? And a matter of fact, I gave a TEDx talk at a high school a couple years ago. The title of which is what we should be teaching kids about stress in high school. And you shouldn't in this country, you shouldn't be allowed to graduate college without knowing what we're talking about today. It should not be allowed because the idea of college is to send you off into the world where you will be happy and healthy and productive. And they're not teaching people to understand themselves as human beings or to understand stress as a human phenomenon. It's the craziest thing in the world. I don't know what they're filling their heads with these days in colleges, but it isn't the real practical stuff you need to live life stress free, to have good relationships, to be able to ward off the bad effects of stress on your
Mm,
health and on your business and what your career, whatever the hell you want to take on. Suppose you're
yeah,
wide eyed and you act full of activism and you want to change the world. There's going to be a lot of stress that's going to come with marching out, to do that. And you better know, the X's and O's of how to win that game, or you're going to get chewed up and burnt out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, so
huge.
it's as I'm listening to you, it's like eliminating the stress. Yes, it takes time to get there, but once you're there, how your life, how your business can really change, and it's so similar
Yeah.
to some of the things that I work with clients on that "Oh, well, I started my business so I have more freedom." Calendar? Why should I have to put everything on calendar? That's so restrictive. But then I show them how when you calendar everything and you stick to a schedule, you actually have more time.
Yeah, it's a
Oh
mindset
my
it's the
goodness.
mindset thing. It's a mindset thing. You had to have a
Yeah,
backwards mindset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's funny, I discovered this stuff about 40 years ago because I was struggling with all that stress as a young physician. And I set out to discover some answers, and I got them, and I put them all together. I've been using that knowledge every day for the last 40 years.
mm,
It's been amazingly useful. I spent 15 years in corporate world, which is one of the craziest places you could ever work. Okay. I don't care what corporation you're working for. I don't care if it's Google. It's crazy. Okay. It's just big bureaucracies are crazy. I spent 15 years in that environment, and lots of people couldn't handle it mentally, psychologically.
mm,
I had no, I had fun every day. I enjoyed myself every day. I laughed 10, 15 times a day. I mean, the stuff was actually humorous. What was going, it was so crazy. It was humorous. But I didn't get stressed out or burned out by it because I had this understanding. And same thing when COVID hit. When COVID hit, I had a system for dealing with unexpected, crazy stuff that comes down the pike that nobody's prepared for, and that even the experts don't understand, and they're going to get it all wrong. Okay. I had a way of dealing with all of that it didn't stress me out for 2 years.
mm,
A lot of other people were max stressed by COVID. What COVID did reveal is that as a society, we've not been prepared to deal with unexpected, stressful events in our lives. We just, nobody's prepared us. And even learning that lesson from COVID, people are still not going to prepare themselves
right.
until the next one hits. And they're going to wonder, oh, God, why
Mhm,
did I get so blown out of the water by this next thing that came? They
right.
just don't take the time to learn what other people have learned that could help them. And you probably see that, lots of
Mm,
people in business don't, they're too busy to get coaching. They're too busy to
mhm,
invest in themselves because they're really the heart of their business.
right,
And they pay prices for that,
right.
financially and spiritually.
Yeah, it's just, take the time, eliminate the problem, and life will be so much better.
First,
So
understand the damn problem. Tell the
mm,
truth about the problem. Forget what everybody else is telling you, most of which is BS, and understand why that is and how you've been seduced into all these false or backwards beliefs. And then figure out what's true, and then get to work on your problems and get down to the real causes, not
mhm,
BS causes, but real causes, and then deal with those causes. And that's the best way to deal with any problem in life. And we, as a civilization, we've been doing that for thousands of years. It's just nobody's recommending that as a way to deal with stress, which is the best way possible to deal with
yeah,
any problem in life. Yeah,
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 mm. Well, this has been a great conversation, Dr. Orman. If people wanna know more how you can help them to eliminate stress, how can they get in touch with you?
well, it's very easy. They can go to my website, which is docorman.com, and there's a contact tab at the top of the page. They can send me a message if they would like to have a chat with me. And also, there's a downloadable report called The High Cost of Zero. It's a real short thing. It takes about 3 minutes to go through, but it talks about all the different costs of stress that we put out of our mind we don't want to look at. But in 3 minutes, you can just see a whole bunch of them that you probably are aware of. You just don't want to confront the fact that this is what stress could be costing you if you don't do something about it. So it's the high cost of zero. In other words, the cost that we pay when we do zero to learn how to eliminate our stress, and we just put up with it and power through it, or even manage it. Which is again
Right.
not getting at the root causes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh. Well, again, thank you, Dr. Orman, for joining me today on Make It Click. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
Christine. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.